Hello there, everybody. Welcome to Real Guitar Live. I'm Thomas Michaud, and today I'm going to answer as many as your guitar-related questions that I possibly can. Feel free anytime to add a question into the chat. I'll be looking for it, but I'll start off with my pre-submitted questions. And if you could, please start your question with the word question, because I'll have comments and I won't be able to sort quickly enough between the comments and the questions. So let me get started with the first pre-submitted question. This is from Jacqueline. Let me see. Josephine. Josephine is asking, I have very small hands and I can't reach beyond the first 3 frets. My D chord sounds muted. Do you have any tips for small hands? Certainly, Josephine. And I think, let me start by saying, I can't honestly claim to have small hands. I just saw my camera move around. I don't like that. It turns on this by itself. Okay, I turned it back off. No moving, please. But I've dealt with people with small hands. And quick story, I own a music school, and for years I intellectually knew that small hands wouldn't stop you from playing music just as well as anyone with bigger fingers. But still in the back of my mind, I probably had some little doubts. And then one day I was interviewing a piano teacher who was very small fingers. And she played a piece for me, and it just blew me away. I mean, her fingers were all over the keys. It sounded beautiful. It really impressed on me that I had already found myself judging. She has small hands. She probably is not going to be an exceptional pianist. And I was totally wrong. Really small hands, first of all, I just want you to know that really does not stop you from playing and playing well. But there are lots of things going on, and there certainly are some tips that can help it make it easier. One of the issues is sorting out what is caused by your small hands and what is just because you don't know the proper technique yet. And when you're starting out, it's hard to know what's what. So the first thing, Josephine is saying she is having a hard time with that D chord. It's muting. Well, let's start there. And believe me, a lot of people with tall, long, skinny fingers have muted chords in the beginning as well. One of the things that you want to pay attention to is your thumb position. A lot of people find their thumb creeping up or kinking behind the neck, and all of this will make it very difficult to actually make a good hand position. Get your thumb behind the neck, roughly seated somewhere in the middle or upper portion, but so that the knuckle is slightly not bent, the opposite, extended. Relax. It doesn't have to be a tense thing, but this gives my hand the freedom to move over the neck. Like this, I've limited now how far my fingers can stretch. The more I do that. Now, some people do play like that. They have techniques that allows them. If you're just learning, don't do that. It's not necessary. It doesn't help you. But it's a habit. Once you get it, it's hard to break. And I wouldn't try to break somebody that's already playing and playing well with their thumb like this. So if you see that, just know that that's a way some people play, but not necessarily a better way. Thumb behind the neck gives you more reach, easier to finger chords. Make sure your fingers are going up and down, kind of like this, as opposed to like this. And it takes practice. A lot of people have their hands kind of like this, and you see right away my finger is touching the next string. You should know that small hands and big hands, a D chord, it's very unlikely it's your hands that are causing a problem with a D chord. G chord, yes, because you have to stretch all the way across the neck. But the D chord, not so much. As a matter of fact, I could even see people with smaller hands have a little advantage on D chords. The real issue will come from people with very fat fingers. That makes it hard to play a D chord without muting the strings. Small hands, it's very likely that you're wrist position, your hand position, your technique. I got myself some little notes. You see me looking over here, so I would answer it thoroughly. A fret location. This is a big one when you're starting out. Make sure your fingers are as close to the frets as possible. I have one of my coworkers who is a talented musician. She plays drums. She plays saxophone beautifully. She sings and plays a little bit of ukulele really well, actually, but is just starting to learn guitar. And she has a hard time wanting to put her fingers up close to the frets. To her, it's just logical. They should be in the middle between two frets. But that's not the way the guitar works. When your fingers between the frets, it leaves too much string there to buzz or mute on the fret. You want to get right up to the fret, not on top, but just up as close to the fret as possible, and you'll be able to get a good sound with the least amount of effort the closer you get to that fret. You can't get always right up to the fret. Depends on the chord. There's some chords you just have to compromise, but as close as you can. And a D chord, you can get your fingers all the way up to the frets. It's a matter of, my hand's not quite like this. It's slightly angled this way. And my fingers, see the frets right there, fret. This one, not quite as close because it's got this finger in the way, but still pretty close. See, if I angle just right, I can get it almost up there. Doesn't have to be touching the fret, just as close as you can. Now, body position helps too. This is unfortunately what I used to do, and it's still causing me trouble to this day. And you don't realize that along with it hurt my back, and I still have back issues from doing that for long periods of time. But the other issue is that it's the way you angle your arm and elbow when you lean down like this. What you want is your elbow to be relaxed at your side, not pushed up, but not pushed back either. And you want to be able to use just a little bit of tension by pulling your elbow back to pulls your fingers down. So it doesn't have to be all clenching with your hand. See, if I just slightly pull my elbow back a little bit, it helps with the pressure I'm putting on the strings without having to clench really hard with my fingers. By the way, when your thumb's in the right place, this is kind of what it looks like. Your thumb's, the guitar's neck between there, and your thumb and your fingers are like that. You see that? Not like this. That's really hard. If you just do that, you'll see how much muscle you have to use to create pressure that way. But this, very little. You can put a lot of pressure with just a little bit of muscle. And that's what I'm after. And this is the guitar neck. So you should be able to play that chord with just enough pressure that if you just release a little bit, your hand would just fall away. So you're not clenching. So the D chord's a good one to practice getting the right hand position, the right elbow position. Relax your elbow. If you find yourself pushing up, just relax. Pull it back a little bit. And then once it's relaxed, you can just pull it a slight amount of pull to help your fingers get pressure on the strings to get a good, clear sound. Now, that said, a lot of students at my school with small fingers get smaller guitars. And it seems to really help. They call them a 3/4 size guitar. And the main issue is it has a little smaller neck. So when you get to the chords where you have to stretch across the neck, it's easier. By the way, electric guitar has the same issue if you happen to have electric guitar. It has thinner strings and a thinner neck. So it actually is easier to make chords on an electric guitar than the acoustic. This is a fairly small acoustic guitar. They call this a concert guitar, I think, or an auditorium guitar. I get a little confused sometimes. But the neck is pretty small too. A 3/4 size guitar, you can get many different variations on it. In other words, an inexpensive one to a more expensive one. They make them for students with small hands, basically. You could also, if you need to, start learning by using partial chords. And keep in mind, when I say this, doesn't mean you're going to be stuck with these indefinitely. When you learn partial chords, you're strengthening your hands, you're getting better technique, and all of that will support you in playing full chords. Here's a partial D chord. Instead of playing the whole D chord, I'm just playing 2 notes out of the D chord. And it's not exactly a D, but it will suffice for a D in situations where you need a D chord. a G chord is one of the bigger ones because you have to stretch all the way across to make a full G. That's where the fingers might actually become an issue. And even with small fingers, I've seen people with small fingers do this just fine. But it takes a little bit more work and practice to get the hand just right. When you have longer fingers, you have a little more room for being sloppy, so to speak. With small fingers, you need to be more accurate. By the way, I think in general, though, people with smaller fingers actually have the ability to play more intricate stuff like finger picking. It's easier to get your fingers between the strings when you have small hands. And there's a few other areas where I think actually small hands are an advantage. I'll hold on that for right now. D chord, G chord, just play a single finger G in the beginning. And remember, as you practice and you play different chords, your fingers are going to get stronger. Your technique, little by little, is going to get better. And you'll be able to one day stretch over and then do a 2-finger G. And then when that's pretty comfortable, you can see you got the stretch pretty good. You put the 3rd finger down, you got a 3-finger G. E minor is a nice, easy chord, and it goes well with these chords that we're talking about right now. It's just 2 fingers, and you're starting to have to reach over, see, more than the D chord. A C chord, I would probably start with a 2-finger C, which is really an A minor chord, but you can use it in place of a C for a while and then get that 3rd finger, and so on. There's several strategies like that. This, by the way, it's helpful to have a progressive program, either online or a teacher to kind of help you narrow that down. But you can do it. You just have to know the principles and work at it and be patient with yourself. By the way, some people with smaller fingers do find they get some help by putting a capo on the guitar and then learning the chords with a capo on. What it does is it makes you go up the neck, which is a little easier to finger some of the chords. I'd say you could try it, but I don't think it's it's going to really solve the issue. It might help a little bit. I don't think it's a big one, but if you try it and you love it, know that you heard it from me. We talked about 3-chord guitar. You got to make sure your guitar works right. This is an issue for everyone. And I started off with a guitar that wasn't very good, and I just didn't know better. I thought you had to tough it through and learn on whatever you had. And then when a friend of my father's gave me a better guitar that the action was adjusted right, and it was a game changer. I couldn't believe I spent so much time fussing with a guitar that had strings were too high off the frets, and it buzzed when I pressed up in here. It hit the frets up in here. Get your guitar adjusted if you haven't done that, or at least have a guitar player go through it and see if it has some problems, or if it's the guitar, or if it's you. A lot of times people who have guitars, either because they're laying around or they buy them at a yard sale or something, they don't work right. They need adjustments. The strings are too high off the frets, or even the neck is not angled properly. And when you press down here, it mutes or buzzes somewhere else on the neck. That could be one of your main issues. And I couldn't say unless I was able to see your guitar. So find at least somebody who plays the guitar, or take it to a guitar store, or have a professional guitar technician adjust your guitar and get it playing well. And just having the confidence that they say, yes, it should play well now, will help you when you're practicing. When you're learning, try doing the things I'm talking about one change at a time and see how it works. It's hard to know what's working if you do a bunch of different things all at once. And you want to do some kind of exercises every day to make your fingers stronger and to learn to get your fingers in the right places. Every day, a little bit, even just 4 or 5 minutes. An exercise, if you don't have one, I call this the finger developer, and it suggests you start with this one. You just hit the string, 1st fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 3 fingers, try and get as close to the frets as possible, then go on to the next string. I'm going on to 5th string or A string. By the way, strings are 1 through 6, going closest to me is the 6th string. 5th string, 1st fret. Again, I'm going for accuracy. You get a clear note, same thing. Speed is not an issue at first. Just go for accuracy. You're developing your strength and your accuracy. As time goes on, you can start doing it in time, slowly, and then pick up the speed little by little. It's important. You got to get your fingers working right. And these simple exercises are the best way to do that. The more complex things, you can't tell if it's the stuff you're playing that's causing the sound, or weak fingers, or inaccurate technique. When you simplify and practice on a technique that's very simple, you can focus on getting the technique right, and little by little apply that to more complex things. I think that's all I can think to say for now, except for I just want to talk about your mindset a little bit. I promise you that your small fingers are not going to keep you from playing guitar. And it's very unlikely, actually, that's the main issue with the D chord. It's either your guitar, your technique, or a combination of because the D chord does not take, my fingers could be that long and I can play a D chord. That's what I'm trying to tell you. There are other chords that'll, like a G in particular, that'll be more of an issue, but not the D chord. So that's good information. You get a chance to take a look at what your technique compared to what I've talked about, get your guitar checked out. I've seen pros with all size hands, including small hands, thick fingers, play beautiful guitar. I've seen it all. And believe me, the size of your hands will not stop you from playing guitar, big or small, fat fingers, small fingers. You might make some adjustments depending on the issue. I have people adjust some of the chords with fat fingers because the big fingers can't get in between those two strings, so they have to press two strings at once. Not the issue with small fingers, obviously. And focus on what you can do, not your disability, so to speak, or what you think you're stuck with in the smallest. Focus on what's the positive step it can take, what you can do next. What you can do next. Is this working? Is this working? It's not working. Let's try the next step. Just keep at it. Persistence. And needless to say, this applies to not only to guitar players in general, but just you're learning something new. This is how it is. And it never quite ends, but you get more confidence. I'm dealing with some techniques that are hard for me. And, I feel myself, I have to catch myself saying, can I ever do this? And I just had a breakthrough a couple of days ago. I said, yeah, it's the same old stuff. It's a different level, but same old stuff. I'm having to go back and pull back a little and see how my technique is. And I was tensing up in some places that I needed to relax and go slower. I was trying to go too hard and pushing too hard. You'll see. It gets easier in the sense that you get more confidence because you've been through it several times after a while, but you'll still have challenges no matter how good you are. Hope that helps. I'd love to hear from you, Josephine, and see if you've made some progress considering all the things I've talked about. I'll go on to the next question for now, and feel free to add in the chat anyone, either a related question or something else. I'll get to the chat as soon as I get through the live questions, the pre-submitted, that's the right word. I have several guitars, but only 2 or 3 regular. I play only 2 or 3 regularly. The others are in their cases, gig bags. Will this cause damage? No. I would, if it's going to be for a long time, I'd loosen the strings a little bit so there's not tension constantly on the guitar. And you don't have to make them really super loose. Just, tune it down a little bit so that it's not quite as tense on the neck of the guitar. This is, by the way, it is helpful to have your guitar laying this way in a gig bag as opposed to this way also. Again, not critical. Depends on where you have them. And of course, just make sure they're not in a place where you're going to bump them or drop them or anything. Gig bag is helpful, but not as protective as a hard case. And if you do have hard cases, I recommend that if you're not going to play your guitar for quite a while. I keep my guitars out all the time because I want to see them and play them, except for just a couple. But for the most part, I like to have them out on the guitar stand, so you don't have to. But in a case, the best places in the case. And if you're in an area where humidity is an issue, or lack of humidity, it's really dry, you might want to use a humidifier in the case to keep it from getting too dry and cracking, especially expensive guitars. Less expensive guitars, they tend to be made with laminated wood, layers of wood, and they don't crack as easily. Yeah, they don't sound as good as very expensive solid top guitars, but they're actually more durable. I mostly play rhythm guitar, singing while I strum, with occasional finger picking or changes in strumming pattern. For variety, is this acceptable, or should I stick to one pattern throughout? No, you don't have to stick to one pattern throughout. I would say changing up too much, aesthetically for me, constant changing with no rhyme or reason is not as pleasing to my ears. But if it's only for yourself, that doesn't matter. If it sounds good to you, it is good. That said, some guidance in terms of when to change patterns. Consider a pattern change for the chorus and then a different one for the verse, and then maybe something, if you're transitioning, a finger picking or something, using it in a way that kind of like indicates this section. This is a section that has this different pattern. By the way, just to be clear, when I'm strumming, let's say the chorus of a song, say it's the chorus, I'm doing a basic strum, but throughout that strum, I do little variations. So I'm not exactly playing the exact same strum throughout. You can't really tell when you look at it. Watch this. I actually did about 3 or 4 little tiny variations right there. It's not that noticeable, but it makes it a little more live than just going, constantly a robot type pattern over and over and over. So I want to clarify that from actually changing up the whole pattern from strumming to finger picking, that kind of thing. I think variety in general is good. And then you have to make choices of what is the right variety and what you're trying to say with the variety. If it's just for variety, I would start, the next level would be, how can I create variety in a way that makes sense in the song? You can use this on the verse, this on the chorus, so that it adds to the kind of the movement of the song, not just variety for variety's sake. That would be a next level, so to speak. How can I speed up without making mistakes? If I do make one, should I stop practicing the song to avoid locking in errors? This is Milo asking this question. Milo, that's an excellent question, and it's an ongoing issue for, I think, everybody, me for sure. Often I will, to speed up, I accept I'm going to have to start making mistakes. So I'll play something I'm working on and try to get it at a slower tempo and then start speeding up. And I know when I start speeding up, I'm going to be pushing to the point where I make mistakes. So it's this balancing act. You're not trying to avoid making mistakes. You're trying to make sure you know what you're trying to play at a slow tempo, then speed up, make mistakes, and then back up a little and see that you can play it accurately again, then push up again. And little by little, what you're trying to do is get where you're making mistakes higher. In other words, I push up to this speed and I start making mistakes. Now I'll bring it back a little bit and get it clear again. And I'll push up and I'll try and push a little farther than that. And each time I'm trying to get farther up so I can play faster with the mistakes. And it's this little leapfrog action going back and forth, back and forth. Don't try to avoid mistakes, but don't play all the time with just making mistakes. You go back, play accurately. And that's how you avoid from screwing up, sort of locking in the errors. Or if you play something wrong over and over and over, your body wants to remember it wrong, so to speak. And if you do that a little bit, that's not an issue. If you do that all the time, yeah, you kind of have to undo the bad habits. Do you have any tips to improve left hand accuracy with speed? Well, it's the same thing, both right hand and left hand. I often work on the two separately. So if I'm trying to get faster, either with a pick or with my fingers, I'll work on exercises very simple in the left hand so I can focus on the right hand. So it's not just focusing on fast. What I'm trying to do is get fast and relaxed. So I'm trying to relax and play fast, and it's never going to start making mistakes. And then I'll slow it down and try and get it right. Same with the left hand. I'll play something in the right hand that's slow or easy. I don't need to focus on the right hand, and I'll just work on left hand. And it could be a variety of things. Depends on what you're trying to get faster. If it's scales, I'll pick a simple scale. So here's an example of something I'm working on lately. Here's a simple scale. So let's just take that scale. I'll start slow and just, this is my warm-up. I just want to get the notes right. I'm playing with a pick, so I do want to make sure my pick's going up and down. I'm not flailing when I move from one string to another. So I'm looking for places where I might have a problem. So here might be a problem. Changing strings. I did that on purpose. So I'll just work on that part. I'll isolate. Okay. So from here to here, that's where the problem is. I've isolated it. So I'll go slow. I'll try and speed up. I'm noticing I have to, how my pick's going down here, up here. Now I'll put it back in. Okay, better. Now I'm going to go past it and add the last ones to it. Okay, there it is. So now, okay. Now I'll speed up a little bit. And so on. Break it down, small pieces, work on the pieces, then add what comes before and afterward. Get that, speed it up a little bit, push it into the whole exercise, the whole scale, see how it's going. Find the next place that it's a problem, start, isolate, break it down, work on just that part, add before and after, speed it up a little bit, same thing, build it back in, play the whole thing. Where else do I need to work? Where else do I need to narrow it down to little areas where I need to work on it? So that would lead me to your next question. Why can't I start playing from the middle of a song without first going back to the beginning? Well, that's a common issue. And I certainly, even the scale, when I first started playing the scale, I had to play the whole scale. And then I tried to find where I was having a problem in the middle of it. And I had to go back to the beginning and keep doing that. In short, you could say you don't really know the song well enough. But the way to do that is to just keep pushing yourself. Do like I was talking about, find the place where you need work on the song, and then try to back up and play a little bit before that and after that, and keep doing that. And if you can't do that, go as far back as you have to, and then keep pushing yourself to be able to start from a different place. So for an example, let's say, I don't know what kind of song you're working on. So let me pick that scale. So here's the whole scale. So this can apply to a whole song with different chords as well and different technique within the chords. I'm having a problem right here, from there to there. But I can't remember where this goes to get to there. So I'll start from the beginning. I'm paying attention. So this was what came before. Okay. Oh, I got to get the fingering right. I need my pinky there. Okay. Now I'm going to back it up. Okay. Now I can play from the beginning of the song up to there. I probably couldn't do that if a mistake was somewhere else later in the scale, but I do the same thing. I keep backing up. If I had to go to the beginning of the song to see what were the notes before that, and I actually had to do that with the scale until I could play anywhere within the scale. Yeah, now I can do it, no problem. I couldn't do that when I first started playing the scale. Couldn't start anywhere in the scale and play from there onward. Takes patience and practice. Keep working at it systematically, step at a time. Go back to the beginning if you have to, and then keep finding where you need to work on the song. Slow down if you have to, but you don't always have to slow down. Sometimes you can just try to get what you're doing up to speed. But if it's not working, stop, slow down, get it accurately, and then speed it back up. Try to get it 4 or 5 times correctly before you move on to something else. That's just a rough rule. It's not an exact science. But don't just get it once right and say, oh, that's it, now I got it. It doesn't usually work that way. And that will keep you from basically locking in errors or playing something wrong all the time. Don't just keep playing through a song. This is the opposite of that. Playing through a song, making the same mistakes over and over and over, and then starting from the beginning and going back. It's a waste of time, and you're basically practicing the mistakes. You don't want to do that. stop, isolate the mistakes, work on them, build them back into the song. Do what you need to do to be able to play from there. If you have to start from the beginning, do it, but work at it. Find, as you play from the beginning, see what comes before that. To me, it's easier with chords. If I'm just strumming chords, I can, there's much less things to keep track of than like a whole scale or a whole passage. Good question, Milo. Thank you. Let's go over to the chat and see what we have today. Hey, Wingo. Summer Yeti. Do you find it better for students to learn on acoustic, classic, acoustic, or electric guitar? That's a good question, because I often heard in my music school, parents bring in their kid, and the kid says, I want to play electric guitar. And parents say, no, you have to learn acoustic guitar first, and then you'll get electric guitar. And a lot of times after I ask them, it just comes from kind of this old-fashioned belief that the acoustic was the real guitar. And so if you're going to play something like electric, you got to get the real thing first, the classical, traditional thing first before you can move on. But no real logical reason for that. And quite frankly, there isn't a good reason for that. If you want to play electric guitar and the music you hear, it is the same 6 strings. There's no reason you have to play acoustic before you play electric guitar. But I will tell you this, if you can play electric guitar and you're doing well, when you go to acoustic, it does feel different and it sounds different. There are issues that are different. If you want to play acoustic guitar, you probably should start on an acoustic guitar. I would probably say start, if you're a brand new beginner, make sure you got light strings, so it's going to hurt your fingers. Start with very light strings or silk steel, but go ahead and get the acoustic guitar. There's no one right guitar to start on. I'd say it depends on kind of music you want to learn, and maybe what's available. If you already have an electric guitar and you're not really attached to any particular style of music, you might want to start there. There is one other issue I just want to mention. A nylon string guitar, often called a classical guitar. This is a nylon string guitar. There can be a flamenco guitar, but they have nylon strings. They have wide necks. They're made that way so that you get the right-hand fingers between the strings. But that's often hard for people with small fingers because the neck's so wide. So it might be better to start on either an acoustic with light strings on it, or a smaller guitar, like a 3/4 guitar that has small neck, and maybe an electric guitar if you're leaning towards wanting to play stuff that's done on an electric guitar. One of the things you'll find with electric guitar as you progress is that there are things you do on electric guitar you can't do on acoustic. It has to do with the amplifier and the distortion and all. So if you want that sound, you are going to have to practice at some point on the electric guitar with the amplifier and get the distortion sound so you can learn how to work it. I found that out the hard way. Started on acoustic, went to electric, and I didn't know what to do with that different sound. It just never came up in an acoustic guitar. It's something you learn by practicing and using it. What brand of guitar are you playing? This particular one is a Martin guitar. I've been looking for a concert size, and this is a concert size, Wingo. Good catch. Preferably with a shallow body. Yeah, this is a good one. And with strings not too close together. This is a great guitar for finger picking. That's one of the reasons that I got it. It has a little less bottom and low, and for when I'm recording, it tends to not muddy up the sound as much as my bigger full-size dreadnought guitars. I can't see one in the back, but I have that too. If I was just strumming and I wanted to sing along, I might want a fuller sound, and that's where I would use that full-size dreadnought guitar. This is, just so you know, it's a Eric Clapton model Fender, a 00028 EC. Love the guitar. Highly recommend it. Okay, that's all the questions I have submitted. I'm going to do our monthly drawing, and this is for people in our Real Guitar Success membership. Each month I do a drawing. It's for a $50 Amazon gift card, and they get in the drawing by completing the 20 sessions each month that they get. It's every week they get a series of 5 sessions that lead up to playing a song, and each session has different elements of the song as well as helps them progress as guitar players. So it's fun. they're only asked to spend 10 minutes on each session a day. It doesn't matter where they get it or not. That's not the important thing. The important thing is they spend 10 minutes on it, check it off, and move on. So let's put the guitar down and see who's in the drawing. And today's winner for the Amazon gift card is Diane. Good job, Diane. I'll be sending you an Amazon gift card. And good job to everyone who has completed the 20 sessions for the month. You've already started on, hopefully, the new sessions for August. And there's some good ones coming up. And any additional questions before I close it up for today? You're very welcome, Wingo. I don't see anything, so I'm going to close up for now. I will be back the second Thursday of next month. We moved it to the second Thursday of each month, and I hope you can make it. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you for being here today. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye for now.